Good evening and a happy Monday night to the folks at home. Welcome to See You at USC. My name is Dan Toomey, and joining me tonight we have a bit of a special guest. His name is Mr. Sam Newman. You may know him as another student here at USC, as well as the executive producer of this show. We're going to talk about a myriad of topics, so make sure you stick with us. And welcome back. Thank you for sticking with us. Once again, my name is Dan Toomey, and we have the utmost honor of welcoming Mr. Sam Newman to the show. Sam, how are you today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Now, Sam, there's this important thing going on tomorrow. It's the election for the President of the United States. And on your shirt, you have vote. And is that something? I assume that you're very opinionated in the topic of millennial voting, and would you mind just elaborating upon that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I definitely think that it's always important for millennials to vote, just because we're a very passionate group of people, and the only way that we can have our voice heard moving forward in terms of government is to vote. And I don't think that enough millennials recognize that this is a systematic way for us to try and get stuff done. I mean, I think you see that throughout this very hectic and long campaign,
yes,
especially with Bernie Sanders and just the support that he galvanized with millennials. And now moving forward to Hillary Clinton, I do feel that she has picked up on that support. I mean, she had the Snapchat filter all day today.
And that's interesting. We've really seen an effort, especially from this election, to get millennials to come out and vote, because I mean, really, in the primaries, we didn't see a whole lot of it. That's how we ended up with a primarily Republican Congress, and I think right now we're definitely seeing a change in that. Would you agree?
I do agree, and I think it's because they made a concerted effort to really recognize that the issues that we care about are on the ballot. I mean, and there's such a distinct difference between the two candidates.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about things that millennials truly care about, like climate change, which, I mean, Donald Trump doesn't even believe is an actual thing.
And who are you voting for first?
I happen to be voting for Hillary Clinton.
Oh, okay, cool. I just wanted to.
Yeah, I just want to clear that up. I am biased for Hillary. So I don't know if it shows.
Yeah.
As probably most millennials are. And that's just because Hillary Clinton does believe in the things that most millennials believe in, which is stuff like, climate change being real and something that we do need to combat as soon as possible. I mean, I'm in a climate change class right now, and looking at the prospects of the next 100 years and how we've kind of reached a tipping point of needing to do something if we want to prevent, sea level rise by 3 meters, which would put most of Florida and New York City underwater. So that's something that is on the ballot this year and is important to come out and vote for, as well as stuff about, equal pay for equal work and, the Supreme Court choices that we're facing. There could be potentially multiple Supreme Court justices who will leave the bench over this term. And, if we want to ensure that we have a future that is more open to everyone and more equal and more fair and, justice for everyone, then it's important to elect someone as our president who believes in those same things and will appoint justices who also believe in those things and will continue to believe in that for their entire term as a justice.
And based on what you're talking about with the subjects that are given in this ballot, it really seems like the opportunities are there for millennials. It's just a matter of them taking it.
Exactly. It's just about getting us out of our dorm rooms and bedrooms and all that stuff and actually going to the polls. I mean, it can be discouraging when you look at, this race and you look at a lot of things going on in this world to say that we actually have a voice, but this is one of the only times. I mean, once a year we have a voice in voting, and every 4 years we have a voice in who actually represents our country around the world. And I think that it is very important to just tell millennials that this is, your moment to go do this. This is your civic duty, and I think that Donald Trump looks at this world as, we need to take this globalized world and bring it back in, where millennials see this globalized world, where we travel and we want to explore that. So to think about our country as something that we need to focus on, here and now, and these domestic issues in voting is something that may be a little foreign to us, and something that, we need to get into the pattern of doing more. I mean, this is going to be my first time being able to vote. So I'm excited to kind of get out there and start a pattern that hopefully I'll continue for the rest of my life of going out and, doing my civic duty and voting, because it's an honor to do that in this country. And I think that when we look at this election and talking about immigration and all of these other policies, people really want this privilege to vote. And because we were born in this country, or I was born in this country, and many obviously people were, to have this opportunity to do it and to come of age where you can do it is an honor, and I don't think millennials recognize that enough.
So now, a bit of a scenario here. So you're talking to a friend, and they're mentioning their disillusionment with this election. It's one of the most partisan elections we've ever seen. The two parties couldn't be farther apart, and they're saying, I feel more comfortable voting for a third-party candidate or just not voting at all. What do you say to that friend?
Well, I mean, I would shake my head. Don't do that.
I don't want to be in the same room, by the way, if that conversation's happening.
No, I mean, at least they're not voting for Donald Trump. It shows that they have some, moral, being against Donald Trump. But here's what I would say with third parties. First of all, just in general, by voting for a third party, in this election, you're basically voting for Donald Trump. Just because there's no way, especially looking at poll numbers now, a day before the election, that these third-party candidates will win a state or win the election in general. And when you look at these candidates specifically, like Jill Stein and Gary Johnson, do you even agree with their policies? I mean, Jill Stein doesn't believe in vaccines. Gary Johnson could not name a foreign leader who he admired, or a foreign leader in general.
Yes.
He faked having a heart attack recently on the news as just a way to, I don't even know what he was, it's just a political stunt at this point to bring in attention to his campaign. But if you're voting third party, I would just advise you to really think about what you're doing. And that every vote that is not going to Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump is a throwaway vote at this point. And I think you can look at, the election of 2000 with Ralph Nader, where, people in Florida were voting for Ralph Nader, and that basically gave the election to George W. Bush. So, your votes do count in every state. In California, it may not count for the presidential election because we are a very democratic state, but it's important for legalizing marijuana. It's important for abolishing the death penalty. And across the country, there are important measures on down ballot races. Getting back the Senate control, improving the Democrats' standing in the House. These are all important issues that people have a say in. So don't feel disillusioned that your vote doesn't count if you're not in one of the swing states. And if you are in the swing states, your vote especially counts. Like, you need to make sure to vote for every single ballot, especially the president, because it is your vote that really counts. Like, you really have a say in this election. And I want everyone who's in those swing states who could be watching to know that your vote especially counts.
And to reel it back a little bit to the topic of millennials, we are a college TV station, and I think throughout this election, the candidate who initially was the most symbolic of the millennial vote was Bernie Sanders earlier in the Democratic vote. What do you think his campaign meant for this overall election and the future of the country moving forward?
Well, I definitely think that it pointed out to a lot of people, basically the establishment and older people, about the power of millennials. I mean, Bernie Sanders basically had no support when he began, and then his ideas slowly caught on with millennials. And millennials really drove his message forward and shared it on social media and, really brought together his whole campaign. It was really a grassroots movement from the get-go. And so I think that shows, moving forward in elections, the importance of millennials and the importance of what they have to say. And I think that that's going to tomorrow. We have something to say, so let's say it. And just because, Hillary Clinton has adopted a lot of Bernie Sanders' policies, like tuition-free college if you're making less than $120,000 a year as a family income, and debt-free tuition, and all of these other policies that he has. And she's adopted those because she's seen, the millennials, they really believe in this. And I want to be a voice for everyone. And they're a big number of the population, they're a big population moving forward. So to get that support is very important. And so what I would say about Bernie Sanders is, he dreamed big, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. But if you're, feeling bad about voting for Hillary, I don't feel bad because Hillary has worked for so long in this world of trying to fight for everything that she believed in, and I don't think she's ever stopped fighting for what she believed in, and she's been kicked down many of times. Throughout her whole career, she's always faced all of these walls that people keep building. That Donald Trump wants to build between people and their future, or in a positive future for this country, in my opinion. And I believe that Bernie Sanders did a great thing that will last for a long time, but now it's time to kind of support Hillary like Bernie has done and support her wholeheartedly.
And I think so now back to you're once again having a discussion with this friend who still doesn't really know how to feel about this election. And one of the main criticisms of Hillary Clinton throughout this election has been starting with the emails, the whole instance of, can we really trust her? Can we really trust the Clinton Foundation? What do you say in response to that? What's your main point of argument?
Well, in terms of the Clinton Foundation,
and I'm sure that you have one ready.
I have my talking points from the Clinton campaign, obviously. And no, but with the Clinton Foundation, I mean, I think that you look at the ratings that they've received from top agencies that are not partisan, and they're a very top-rated agency, and they do great work across the world with AIDS prevention and all that type of stuff. So they're definitely, and Hillary and Bill will be stepping back from the foundation once, if she becomes elected. And in terms of her emails, I mean, sure, it was a mistake. It was a very big mistake on her part, and obviously she's apologized over and over and over and over and over again at this point. And I think that it is the way she handles it that makes people not trust her. But in terms of the emails themselves, when George Bush was in office, his White House lost over 3 million emails and no one talks about it. The Secretary of State's before Hillary Clinton also used private email accounts that, were never brought up. It's just that throughout her career, Republicans have always, always, always wanted to tear her down. They've always wanted to stop her in her path. And I think that just goes for everything that she stands for, and the person that she is, that she never backs down, that she keeps going, and that she never stops fighting. I mean, you look at Obama running, and her putting that aside, and becoming a Secretary of State and being willing to work with him. And I think that just shows the type of person that she is and the character that she is and the morals and values that she represents.
And I read an article from the New York Times where you're talking about the Obama presidency and discussing how a lot of it, he started off with big dreams that not entirely were accomplished by the end of it, but almost had like the springboard was there. And I think the ball is now in the court of Hillary Clinton, if she does come away with the presidency, to continue that. Do you believe that that's what she'll do, is almost a continuation of the Obama presidency?
I definitely think she'll continue the Obama administration and expand on it. I mean, there are so many things that Obama did not get done, that he's admitted that he has not get done, that she plans to address immediately. I mean, when you're talking about, immigration reform and social justice reform, she's said in the first 100 days that she's in office, that's what she plans to address right away. And I think that that's stuff that Obama not failed to, get, but due to the Congress being overwhelmingly Republican, faced a lot of roadblocks from accomplishing.
And do you see, with the Republican Congress, do you see that solution being made easier? Quick answer, because we have to cut through commercial breaks soon.
Well, the Republican Congress makes nothing easier. But hopefully we'll turn the Senate so that at least we can get a little bit done.
Yeah, and with the partisan atmosphere and everything, it's going to be a difficult 4 years, correct?
And especially with the country being even more divided following this election, she's going to have to really live up to her campaign message, which is stronger together.
Well, Sam, I would love to talk more about this with you.
I would love to continue talking
after the commercial break.
Yes, of course.
Once again, for Sam Newman, my name is Dan Toomey. Hope to see you here after the break. Thanks for watching.
The year was 1938, and the U.S. sat on the brink of another world war. The American people looked for diversion from the trials and tribulations of a new century and its new problems. In 1940, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt authorized the release of an entirely new form of entertainment.
Today, a hope of many years standing is in large part fulfilled.
It was called the Trojan Visual and Auditory Mimeograph Device, or Trojan Vision for short. As bombs fell and war was waged, society tuned to 8.1 for relief. Throughout American history, Trojan Vision has shown us the moments of America's triumphs, spreading the finest programming throughout Greater Los Angeles and worldwide online. Watch Trojan Vision and see history being made.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming back for the second half. Joining me tonight is Mr. Sam Newman, and we're talking about the election a little bit. It's kind of a big topic, and I thought, that might be the one to talk about.
Is that tomorrow?
I think it is. I believe it is tomorrow.
Interesting.
And we talked a lot in the first half about the importance of getting out to vote for tomorrow. We talked about the millennial vote. We talked about certain policies. And towards the end of the first half, we started to talk about partisan politics. And it's really the state of our country right now. And if Hillary Clinton does walk away with the presidency tomorrow, she has to deal with a heavy Republican Congress and really a whole side of the country that would rather have Donald Trump as president. How do you see her facing that challenge over the course of 4 years?
Well, I think it's more than just Hillary's challenge. I think this is something that the country needs to address. We can't just ignore this not majority, but a large section of this population that believes in what Donald Trump is talking about, or this large section of the population that believes what Hillary Clinton is talking about. I mean, they're two very different views of America, and I think that it's very important to address that. And the opinions that people had for Donald Trump, those people who believe in him, clearly are feeling frustrated with the system and with our country in general. I mean, the country is changing. It's becoming more diverse. It's becoming more liberal. And that's scary for some people, and that's clearly what attracted them to Donald Trump in the first place.
Yeah.
So when we talk about that, especially with white working class men in the Mideast, in the Midwest,
Midwest, yes,
not a thing. In the Midwest, so, it's important to talk about how they're feeling that they're being left behind, and that what they do is not seen as important in this new country and in this new world that's expanding. And that's why Donald Trump's message of Make America Great Again, going back to a time when it was America first and, all these manufacturing jobs and coal and all of these things that we're now realizing aren't, the future of this country and of this world that need to be addressed. And we need to really focus in on what's making them upset and, trying to fix that and trying to prepare a new generation, because these people aren't old. These are 40-year-old people, 50-year-old people who will be living for another 40 years and who, if they don't have jobs, then the system's going to have to take care of them, and then we need to support them. And we need to try and find a way for them to remain active participants in our country and in our democracy, because that's what our country's all about.
Yeah, and because it means something. The fact that Donald Trump has made it this far, and there's such a large proportion of the American society that is in support of him. And I don't think if Hillary does walk away with the election, it can't be ignored. That it's a very significant thing that America went through.
Exactly, and that's why I've been listening to Hillary's speeches all day and for the past few days now, where she's kind of changing her message to be the more optimistic, really? Final closing argument, which she's been trying to do for a while, but with the email scandal,
it's been such a cutthroat campaign.
It has. So that's why she's been straying away from mentioning Trump's name and talking about how she wants to be a president for all Americans, even if they don't vote for her. And I think that that's something that's very important, and a drastic difference between Donald Trump, who continues to bash the media and bash her for this rigged system, which only endangers the democracy.
And now to flip the script a little bit, say tomorrow all the ballots are in and Donald Trump walks away with the election. What are the next moves for the Democratic Party if that happens?
Yeah, very scary. What are the moves for the Democratic Party?
Yeah, or Hillary Clinton, the whole Democratic Party, if Donald Trump does walk away.
I can't. It's very hard for me to imagine, but I'm scared about it. I lose sleep about it. I'm thinking about it all the time. I think that the Democratic Party will be the bigger, they'll recognize that this is what the country believes in and move on from that. I think that they'll have a big challenge ahead of them moving forward.
Definitely.
Just because, I'm not talking about like in Congress or anything like that, because you kind of have to let democracy run its course. And so in 4 years from now, I think that what we have to do as a party is to recognize this problem. I mean, I think that the country will change significantly in the next 4 years as it has in the last 4. And I think that it'll rest in millennials. I mean, I think that when we talked about millennials earlier and the stuff that they're passionate about, that's what the Democratic Party has to be. It has to move more left. I think it has to pick up all of these voters who felt that they didn't have a voice in this election, and that's why they didn't show up.
Yeah.
And finding that voice will be difficult, just because I think that the Republican Party kind of rests in one main idea of going backwards, and the Democratic Party has so many different ideas that they are struggling with, you know, how far are we willing to go towards socialist ideas, you know, with healthcare for everyone and, you know, all of those types of policies. You know, how do we get there? And how do we deal with all of the different opinions? Because it's not just millennials who comprise the Democratic Party. It's immigrants of all ages, and, you know, white people, of college educated white people, older white people. You know, there are people who, you know, the Democratic Party is a lot more diverse than the Republican Party. Therefore, the ideas that they have are a lot more diverse and different. And that's what makes the Democratic Party, in my opinion, so much greater and so much more accepting, just because we're willing to listen to the ideas. And I think that if you look at Hillary Clinton's candidacy and her whole career, you know, she's someone who is listening to people. Donald Trump tends to just yell at us.
Yeah.
Via his tweets and such.
And now to bring the conversation once again back to the millennial vote, I thought it would be interesting to talk about what specific policies are you most passionate about that will be on the ballot tomorrow?
Well, besides the presidency.
Besides the whole
is of the utmost
president
importance.
part of it.
Besides the presidency,
Yes.
I mean, specifically in California here and across the country, there are a lot of states that are taking up marijuana as, you know, whether legalizing it entirely or medical marijuana changes. So I definitely think that people will show up to the polls to vote on that. And I mean, in California.
Especially in California.
Especially in California. And I know that Washington has it on the ballot, and a number of other states.
Yes.
And I think it's important to show up for that. But I also think that, I mean, in California, the death penalty is on the ballot, and that's a very important, you know, policy that's on the ballot that we need to address as a country. And California is always the lead in terms of, you know, creating a country dynamic, just because, you know, we're a very large state and we tend to be very progressive. So when we do something, the country tends to notice.
Yeah.
So if we abolish the death penalty here, you know, in 2 years or 1 year, you know, any time there's another election, the death penalty may be on more ballots, and we can get rid of that, because it's actually, most people don't know this, but the death penalty and putting someone on death row is actually more expensive than holding someone for life in prison.
Really?
It is. Just because you have to, all of the trials and all that
exactly.
stuff that goes into the death penalty. And it's also, I mean, it's immoral, you know, for so many reasons. And I would also say that we need to reform our criminal justice justice system, that Hillary wants to do that. And it's also on the ballot here in California about limiting sentences and, you know, getting people educated out of it so that they can become productive members of our society.
And going back once again to the topic of Hillary Clinton moving forward if she does come away with the presidency, and do you believe that given this state of political divide our country faces, would the Democratic Party need to reach across the aisle a little bit more, and same with the Republicans, to reach some type of compromise so we can get legislation passed faster? I know we talked earlier about Barack Obama's presidency not really being able to get much done, and a lot of that was because of political gridlock with a divided system. And so in terms of solutions, do you see that being in reaching across the aisle more, or?
Well, somehow I don't see the Republicans reaching across the aisle. But that could just be partisan politics. But I would hope that, obviously, after tomorrow, that the Democrats regain control of the Senate, so it makes it slightly easier in terms of getting actual legislation passed. And the Supreme Court justices and that type of, you know, policy. And if not, Hillary has been known, and she has been, you know, you hear from actual Republican senators about how she was someone who reached across the aisle and who was willing to work with both parties in order to actually get stuff done. So I would hope that she would continue that work and getting stuff done on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
So if tomorrow if the Democrats get back the Senate, then I would look for a lot more policy coming out of it, and us getting the Supreme Court Justice, Merrick Garland or someone else who Hillary nominates, through quickly, so that we can actually regain exactly what the Founding Fathers hoped for our Supreme Court, instead of what the Republicans, playing politics with it, which is just beyond moronic at this point.
And now, just for you, I mean, you may, of course, be in the minority of being maybe a little bit more passionate about the election than the average millennial. But what does it mean for you specifically to be voting in your first election?
Yeah, it's very, this is going to be one of the most historic elections of our lifetime, if not the most historic. I mean, I can't possibly imagine another election like this, just because there's so much about it.
And it seems like it's been going on for so long.
Forever. I can't believe that it's tomorrow.
I can't believe that it's ending tomorrow.
Right? What are we going to do with ourselves?
I don't know.
I think we should just take the next 4 years off.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, deal. Starting now.
Yeah.
No, I think that what it means to vote, you really have to look at this election in terms of what it means to vote, just because, a big topic is immigration and people who want to come to this country for a better life.
Yeah.
And those people, all they want is to live here and to have the opportunities that we grew up with voting and having the right to vote and getting to have a say in this election.
Yeah.
So when you look at that and when you think about that when you're voting tomorrow, and how lucky we are when you look across this world and see people who are not able to vote and who are not able to do that.
Because people die for their right to vote in other
Exactly, and people have died in this country for the right to vote. And I think those people are going to show up to the polls tomorrow remembering that. And I think that, I'm very lucky to vote in this country. And tomorrow when I show up to cast my vote for Hillary Clinton and for the first woman president, I will remember that moment. And I encourage everyone to think about, when they're talking to their children and their grandchildren and future generations, to be able to say, I took a stand against racism and misogyny and, all of these things that Donald Trump seems to represent in this country, and elect a woman who believes in everything that I believe in about the future of this country. I think that that's super important, and that will create. That's what has created for me all the stakes in this election, and what it keeps me up at night and thinking about it, and keeps reading and refreshing and all that stuff, and reading the same thing over and over again.
Well, honestly, I couldn't have said it better myself. Sam.
I'm sure we could have.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Thank you. Thank you for the compliment. Sam, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me,
It was a blast. Our executive producer here at CU at USC, Sam Newman. Thank you once again for joining us. This has been CU at USC on Monday night. Thank you for watching.
Make sure
Don't
to
forget
go out
to vote.
And vote
Don't
tomorrow.
forget to vote.
Vote. Fight on.
Thanks for watching.
You're watching Trojan Vision. For more of your favorite shows, check us out at trojanvision.com and like us on Facebook.
Here's the story of a TV manager who had a team to help out with the station. There's HR, web, graphics, busy showrunners, and station operations. The TV manager needs a new assistant, and we welcome her along with a few more. There's programming, equipment, and promotions, and they have much in store. All the managers, we work together to make live TV the best it's ever been. We have many helpful students to assist us. That's the way we all became Trojan Vision.